week later, a hard frost settled over the Forbidden Temple, bringing with it a biting wind that whistled through the courtyards and sent drifts of pale mist spilling down the garden paths. The chill bit at my skin, but I barely felt it as I descended the winding stair to the 10th terrace, where Dhalâra was practicing katana routines with a group of other wardens. Whether it was because I was too focused on my plan to surprise her, or because I'd simply grown numb to the cold, I didn't know. And honestly, I wasn't ready to accept either. Both would mean that this place had begun to take root inside me, changing me. I pushed that thought away and kept my mind fixed on Dhalâra, determined to hold myself at a distance from whatever strange influence this place held. I was just here to watch, to be a decent friend, I told myself. Nothing more. I stopped just shy of the courtyard's edge, leaning against the stone wall, hidden by a shadowed archway, and looked for her. The courtyard filled with the clink-clank of blades meeting, wardens sparring across the yard, each pair focused and disciplined. I searched through the groups, but for a moment I couldn't pick her out. She'd told me she'd be practicing today. Maybe I'd misunderstood. Just as disappointment clumped in my chest, I spotted her. She was magnificent. A blur of grace and precision, her katana weaving through the air as she faced off against her sparring partner. Each movement was smooth, deliberate, the blade a flash of silver in her hands. Her dark robes whipped around her legs as she turned, gaze fixed and steady, her face sharpened with a fierce concentration. This was Dhalâra as I'd never seen her, a force, unyielding and fierce. The same girl who had quietly brought me those baskets of food in the Forsaken Garden was here something else entirely, a whirlwind of steel. The warden she faced was taller, broader, a veteran, I guessed, by her solid stance and deft footwork. But Dhalâra was undaunted, meeting each strike with a quiet, simmering intensity. Even in the small, controlled moves, an arc here, a quick parry there, she was somehow terrifying. Like she could cut down anything in her path if she chose. At last, her opponent lowered her blade, signaling the end of practice. Around them, pairs of wardens began sheathing their weapons and drifting toward the gate opposite me, murmuring among themselves in low, familiar tones. Quiet laughter filled the crisp air as they gathered their equipment, but not one of them paused for Dhalâra. Together they left, their voices fading as they stepped off the practice grounds, leaving her standing alone. Not a word, not a glance. They hadn't even hesitated, as though she weren't worth a second look. Dhalâra stood alone for a moment, catching her breath, her shoulders rising and falling in the cold air. She glanced towards the retreating figures of her peers, and something unreadable crossed her face, just for a flicker of a second, before she bent down to pick up a pile of wooden practice swords. Her scarred fingers moved quietly, gathering the scattered weapons, and she began tidying up, stacking shields and cloth armor without a word. The quiet of it all hurt to watch. The feeling settled in my chest, heavy and uncomfortable, as I took a step forward and crossed the courtyard toward her. She looked up as I approached, a look of surprise on her face. "Emilia? Are you all right?" I asked, instantly feeling stupid for the question. "Why wouldn't I be? I just thought..." A glance towards the empty archway, the faint echo of footsteps still lingering. "The others... they leave," she said, as if it was nothing at all. "They have things to do." I studied her expression, the careful calm she wore like armor. I couldn't tell if she truly was unbothered and found my insinuation perplexing, or if this was some kind of mask she put on. Part of me wanted to press her about it, to ask if she ever felt lonely here in the temple, with only those indifferent faces for company. But the way she stood, steady and matter-of-fact, made it feel like she wouldn't even understand the question. So I let it be. "I was just passing by," I said, shifting my weight. Dhalâra nodded, brushing some bloody snow off her sleeve, but didn't reply. "Do you know what date it is?" I asked. "Date?" "Yeah," I said, tugging at a lock of my hair. "Like the 10th of December, for example, or the 18th.
"What's that?"
"You don't know what December is?"
"Not really."
"It's a month. The last of the year." She shook her head.
"I don't think so."
"It's true."
"Not here it isn't. The year ends with the 3rd moon of winter, and that's still 3 months away."
"So it is December," I concluded.
"Why do you ask?"
"Because it's my birthday soon, I think. Honestly, I lost track of the days weeks ago."
"Your birthday?"
"Mm-hmm. December 18th. When's yours?"
"I don't know."
"You don't know?"
"Of course not."
"I don't remember being born."
"No one does."
"No, but didn't your parents ever tell you? Or Ezra, for that matter?"
"Why would they?"
"Because it's your birthday."
"I don't follow."
"Maybe you don't do it here, but back home we celebrate birthdays every year, usually with gifts and, I don't know, celebrations."
"Why?"
"To mark another year of life, I guess." She looked at me thoughtfully, as if weighing my words.
"But why does it matter? The day you were born was just one day among many, most of which would be far more remarkable. I've never seen a newborn do anything particularly impressive."
"It's just a nice thing, Dhalâra. People celebrate each other's birthdays. It makes you feel valued, I guess. Like people are glad you're alive." Dhalâra tilted her head, her gaze calm and assessing.
"It sounds silly,"
she said. A prickle ran up the back of my neck. I'd always loved my birthday. When I was little, it had meant my handmaiden Anna waking me at dawn with sweet rolls and candied nuts. It had meant Father giving me a quick hug before leaving for council meetings, and Mother gifting me something special. A new dress or a circlet encrusted with jewels. Once she gave me a necklace like the one Princess Iris wore. Here, that happiness felt a world away. But of course Dhalâra wouldn't understand. Her life had been spent in the Forbidden Temple, where family was a high priestess who probably raised her more like a guard dog than a daughter. No one special, just one of countless wardens. And Ezra. Imagining her wishing someone a happy birthday was like trying to picture a Velhorodont riding a pony. Dhalâra had no idea what it was like to be celebrated, to feel special.
"Are you upset?"
she asked suddenly, startling me. Her head tilted slightly, the way it did when she didn't understand something. "No," I said quickly, turning my face away. "I'm not. It's fine."
"Great."
She turned to gather her belongings, leaving me standing there, twisting a lock of hair, feeling foolish. I supposed turning 16 would be an uneventful thing here. The next day, the entire Order of the Black Sun was assembled. I followed Dhalâra and the other wardens through a grove of trees. This part of the Forbidden Temple was bleaker than the other terraces I'd grown accustomed to. Buildings were scarce here, swallowed by the forest. Winter had stripped the trees to their bones, their branches arching above us like skeletal fingers. Thin layers of frost clung to the roots of ancient, gnarled trunks, and the air was sharp and biting, carrying a faint metallic tang that settled on my tongue. Every step crunched against frozen leaves and brittle patches of ice, each sound swallowed quickly by the silence of the trees. "What's going on?" I whispered to Dhalâra, my voice barely breaking the stillness. She walked beside me, her gaze fixed forward. She hesitated, tightening her jaw.
"You'll see."
I didn't like that response. It felt like she was holding something back, shielding me from something she thought I wasn't ready to understand. My stomach dropped, a spike of unease spreading through me, but I said nothing more, letting the silence fall back around us. The trees began to thin, their twisted branches retreating as we approached a clearing.
"What is this place?" "The Whispering Glade,"
Dhalâra said quickly, her voice merely a whisper.
"And why are we here?"
"Shh!" I rolled my eye. Turns out one wasn't supposed to speak in the Whispering Glade. Right. Wouldn't want to disturb the trees, I guess. The glade lay open before us, and in the middle, a vast circle. It was traced in the frost-covered grass, surrounded by bonfires that cast wavering light. Flames crackled, their glow licking against the dark sky. Sparks drifted up, mixing with ash that floated through the air like dark snowflakes. They swirled in the biting wind that swept through the trees, carrying the scent of charred wood and something sharper, metallic, like iron. I shivered as Dhalâra and I took our places at the circle's edge, joining the other wardens who'd already gathered. They stood perfectly still, faces impassive, bug eyes forward, as if they'd done this 100 times before. Not a single whisper broke the air. Even the fires seemed to crackle softly, subdued by the weight of whatever was about to happen. No one else seemed to feel it, the tension that weighed on this place. I looked around, searching for some hint of unease, some flicker of discomfort, but all I saw were blank faces, calm and composed. Then, from the crowd, Azura emerged. She moved slowly, her dark robes trailing behind her, gathering frost and dew as she crossed the clearing. Her presence was magnetic, a quiet power that drew all eyes to her as she stepped into the circle. Behind her, an elderly warden followed. A female thin and frail, her face lined with age, her shoulders stooped beneath the weight of her years. She moved with a strange, quiet dignity, though her steps faltered, her hands trembling as she folded them in front of her. When she reached the center of the circle, the old warden knelt, lowering herself to the ground with a kind of reverence. Azura remained standing, looking down at her, silent and solemn. The wind stirred again, carrying a faint swirl of ash from the fires, and the shadows around the circle seemed to deepen, as though the glade itself was bracing for what was about to happen. Azura's voice broke the stillness, each word as cold and heavy as the silence that came before it.
We are all mortal. This is not a curse, but a gift bestowed upon us by the gods. Death, oh my children, is as sacred as the earth we tread. Without death, there can be no true suffering, and without suffering there is no change, no growth, no movement, no becoming. Suffering disrupts us. It breaks the stillness. Death is the final disruption, the guarantee that nothing lasts forever. No joy, no self, no peace. We love because things end, because they can be lost. Without death, Love becomes a performance without risk, a song that never needs to end and so never truly begins. Death, my children, without it, the world would be still and silent. Eternal, yes, but hollow.
Her words settled over the glade, sinking into the silence. I thought back to what she told me a few weeks ago, that this world was not a prison, but an opportunity, a stage for struggle and growth, shaped by suffering, struggle and surrender. A dance between the Raven and Legina, relentless and yielding, each burst of life made bearable by its inevitable end. A chill crept along my skin, shivering beneath the layers of my cloak. I shifted my weight, glancing at Dhalâra, but her face was steadfast, her gaze fixed straight ahead. She looked cold as ice. It scared me. I wanted to shake her, to demand she tell me what was happening here, why everyone seemed so serene. But something in Azura's voice and the stillness of this crowd held me back.
And yet, even as death is inevitable, Raven teaches us to take action, to seize control of our fate. Mortality is a gift, but it is also a responsibility, to know when to embrace the end, rather than wait for it to come upon us.
And then I understood. A cold sweat broke out across my back. I looked at the old warden, kneeling there with her head bowed, her shoulders sagging under some invisible weight. I wanted to look away, to pretend I hadn't realized what was about to happen, but I couldn't. I was rooted to the spot, my heart thudding in my chest, the cold sinking deeper into my bones. Azura turned to the elderly warden.
Your time has come. Today, in the presence of elves and gods, you will perform your final act. You will meet death on your terms, and the Erden shall be satisfied.
From within her robes, Azura produced the fang of the Raven and held it out to the old warden. The old elf's frail, trembling hands reached up, closing around the hilt with surprising steadiness. I stared, feeling a flash of confusion, of disbelief. Azura had said most wouldn't even be able to hold the fang, that it would overwhelm them, force them to drop it unless they were marked by the Raven. But here was this old elf, clutching the knife as though it were nothing more than any other blade. Had the Raven marked her in some way I couldn't see? Or had Azura lied about who could wield it? The questions tangled in my mind, fighting for space with the rising horror that was threatening to choke me. The old warden looked up at Azura, her eyes filled with a quiet acceptance, and for a brief moment I saw a kind of peace there. The soft embrace. My throat tightened as I watched her lift the blade. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to move, to say something, to break the awful silence. But I couldn't. My feet were rooted to the frost-covered ground, my chest tightening as I watched, helpless, as the old warden pressed the fang to her own chest and, in a swift, unhesitating motion, drove it in. A shuddering breath escaped her lips, visible in the cold air, and her body sank forward, crumpling into the frost. The fires around the circle flared briefly, sending a scattering of sparks spiraling up into the air. The glow faded, leaving only shadows and silence, as if the earth itself were holding its breath. I wanted to scream, to run, to do something, anything that would shatter the terrible stillness. But around me, the other wardens stood as they had before, their faces untouched. It was as though nothing out of the ordinary had happened, as though this was simply another ritual, another day. I clenched my hands at my side, trying to keep them from shaking. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't make sense of what I had just witnessed. My mind kept returning to the knife in her hands. The ashes drifted into the sky, mingling with the smoke that rose from the fires, and the old warden was dead. This wasn't a world I understood, no matter how much I learned about their gods, their histories, their mythologies. These people acted as if death was salvation, a gift wrapped in blood and bone. Even the air felt different now, heavier, tinged with something dark and unfathomable. I looked around, desperate for some flicker of doubt, some crack in their serene faces. But there was nothing. Only stillness. Only quiet acceptance. I shot Dhalâra a glance. Yes, she was like that too. And for the first time, I felt truly afraid. I realized that no matter what roots this place had planted in me, I would never belong here.